Superman. He looks like one of us, but he's actually the other. A filthy alien.
This planet is protected, alien.
Alien? They ain't got mirrors on this dump.
Superman Man of Tomorrow, the animated movie, similar to Batman Year One, is a symbolic origin story that explores how our hero became who they are by deciding what they represent. But instead of deciding to use fear like a weenie, Clark uses the Chad move to defy society's presumptuous fears of the other. Its premise is eerily similar to James Gunn's film, a classy young Superman reboot about him walking the Daily Planet and making sense of his dual heritage. Both marks a return to the familiar and the classical after an edgier universe which tried too hard to be cool and used the Flash to reboot everything. I like to call this the New 52 to Rebirth prophecy.
Something changing your mind.
Clark Kent is an invisible contradiction. He's accepted because of his appearance, but because it's just his appearance, he's always hiding by default. The film really hammers this with two things. The public loves him. When he fought Lobo and ended up naked, everyone cheers, because it's someone who looks like them defeating the unfamiliar and the different, while they're all scared of Martian Manhunter when he helped. This leads to the way Clark is labelled. First, it's the Flying Man, then it's the Superman afterwards, which I just love. He's not called Superman because of his superpowers, but because humanity feels so endangered by aliens that they want to champion. He's a human, that's super. As a result, the struggles of Superman is entirely symbolic here. He has no suspicious or tense relationship with the government, and during Perry's screaming meeting, his board separates the Superman story from the arriving alien story. As scholar Frank Ferretti, who went to my university for a talk back in the day, once said, one of the distinguishing features of fear today is that it appears to have an independent existence. It is frequently cited as a problem that exists in its own right, dissociated from any specific object. For example, fear of crime is something that police needs to manage as much as actual crime nowadays. The independent existence of fear is more or less the villain of the film here, and if Clark can get over his anxieties with losing his privileges, he can be the key to solving it.
They don't know me. And I'm afraid that when they do,
maybe you're what they need. If they knew about you, maybe they'd see things differently.
The film does have an issue where it's very vague when it comes to its depiction of xenophobia. There's no Gordon Godfrey here trying to divide people up and causing a stir. There's no rhetoric where we can draw a useful allegorical line with our reality. There's just scared reactions. Someone throws a Molotov cocktail at one point and a whole lot of talking about it.
I've seen firsthand how rampant xenophobia can destroy a great civilization.
The story is instead built around the build-up towards rampant xenophobia.
If humanity is to have a chance to thrive, we mustn't further stoke its fears.
Because I guess the political climate of the Tomorrowverse is way less reactionary and more sane than ours. The symbol which represents this danger is Lois Lane. In the opening during Lex's launch, she exposes how he's funded by a hefty government contract and is negligent of the safety of those living near the launch site, which is eerily similar to real life, but unlike real life, this billionaire actually gets sentenced after the rocket fails. Lois's introduction establishes the danger of the pen or keyboard. Like the movie in the opening that made Clark cry, the media has the power to author the story of entire groups of people, to shape the public's imagination.
People with that much power think they wield it over everyone. If you can take that away from them for a moment, you can take it away for good. It's called a power move.
There is a problem where, because all of this is introduced with her taking down Lex, you don't quite feel her danger, you're instead satisfied by her actions. Therefore, her plan to take down Superman feels more cute than actually credible, which really takes away the suspense that the whole film is trying to build itself around.
Well,
it's only part one. She's teasing something big, but won't say what until she interviews Lobo.
Lois isn't a xenophobe though, she just assumes Superman has a very big ego like Lex. She even deliberately doesn't go to their interview in a fun bit of subversion to turn him into putty for the reschedule. Her presumption of this insincerity is what makes her an obstacle, but upon learning he's sincere, she gets it.
You're right about my origins, Lois. But not my intentions. Please don't run your story. I should be the one to tell the world.
First, you have to save it.
More than anything in the world, Lois sees journalism as the tool for justice and a form of responsibility, and this is the perspective which re-energizes Clark during his low point.
You try and make a difference and fight for truth, justice. And sometimes you get smacked down, but let me tell you, Clark Kent,
If this is what you want, if it's who you are, then you have to do it.
But what does Superman actually want? He represents hope, sure, but what's the call to action within his rhetoric of hope? It's the hope of being better and accept different people, like how his parents accepted him. You know the whole "I've seen the kindness of the human spirit." There are 3 aliens in this film.
The last surviving members of each of our peoples.
3 different positions on otherness. There's ambivalence and profit, hide it all to avoid being singled out, and the desire for representation. In all of Clark's life, there's been 2 options.
You can either
meet it head on and accept the consequences, or you can keep your head down and accept the consequences. There's no wrong choice, but
You have to make one.
Jean lives by option B, but his motivations is what causes Clark to pick option A. As Jean explains, they are both all that's left of their people, so hiding preserves their people. But it's also a path of danger because of the undiffused prospect of eventual xenophobia.
I thought Martians only existed in the movies.
Those movies are terrible.
This moment in the film is easily my favourite. At first I was kinda annoyed at how also vague the depiction of heritage is. The film never gets into the specifics of traditions, practices, language or history that Clark inherits. Instead it's all simplified by this little record device Jean unlocks.
I could teach you and help you access those memories.
But then as they chill out, Jean reveals that he had read Clark's mind when he thought the Flying Man was a Martian. And then I realised, oh, alright. The focus isn't look at what they've inherited, it's look at how they're just people. They're a metaphor for refugees who have settled in their new country, who are just sitting in a kitchen, chilling, comparing lost homes.
You're the last. You're like me.
That's also kind of the point of Lobo, where even in space, dudes are always gonna want to talk about sex and smoke cigars and be bros.
Come on, girly.
As a result, Superman represents preserving the endangered, like himself, like Jean, and also show that despite how everyone can look different, we're all just people, which is quite literally the climax. But wait, hold on. Who's the actual bad guy? It's this dude. If Superman is the hero from within who's actually the other, then Parasite looks like an alien, but he's actually the most human of them all. Rudy is a war vet supporting a wife and child as a humble janitor and as a victim of the fighting. In his introduction, Clark gives him his coffee, and Rudy hands him some nice gossip over what LexCorp is doing behind closed doors, because he hears Clark is an intern looking for a scoop.
I've seen stuff in there. Experiments.
He's a cool dude, closer to Clark than anyone else in the film, but then gets hit by Lobo's organic EMP grenade. So then he turns into a life-sucking monster who murders everyone. So he's feared. But that's also a bit of confusing thematic execution, because now the fear isn't unfounded.
Did someone call in a prescription for you, sir?
Pain.
Either they should have made him not want to absorb people, but because no one wants to help him, he became a monster and begins to lose sympathy out of survival, or make him into a straight up xenophobe, so it's ironic that he becomes a monster and Superman standing up for him becomes more heartfelt. Anyways, Parasite doesn't just absorb someone's strength, but their memories, their weakness. So after all the physical attacks don't work, Superman decides to defuse the monster by diffusing the fear.
He's not the alien. I am. I see the anger in you, but the truth is, you don't hate aliens. You're scared, terrified of them, even when they're not there. This man's name is Rudy Jones. He's the victim of a terrible accident. But he was born here. He's one of you. And so am I. I was born in the last days of a dying planet. My parents' hope was that they had sent me to a world where I would be safe and protected. But the price of that protection, silence about who and what I really am, while others like me face persecution or worse. I was scared, but I'm not scared anymore. My name is Kal-El of Krypton, and I come in peace.
The film has a lot of familiar cliches, but it uses them with enough purpose to be interesting. This climax is pretty darn good in terms of suddenly letting everything fit together, and I get to go, oh, ooh, gotcha. Lois smiles. Some aren't entirely convinced, but then Rudy sees the reactors about to conveniently explode, so as Superman collapses from being too weak, he leaps over and sacrifices himself. Rudy turns into CGI dust. The people who were previously reacting with fear and danger are now silent. As the 3 aliens go their separate ways, Clark stays, because this is now officially his home. He then leaves Lois hanging. But she eventually smiles, because she knows he's not an egomaniac. And Clark smiles, because people still look up to the sky and see him as their champion. The champion of humanity is an alien. Superman's character was created as a response to the social problems of his time. Back in 1938, in Action Comics issue 1, he was not a cosmic being who fought aliens or robots, but fought against grounded inequalities. In page 5, he stops the execution of an innocent woman. In page 7, he fought a wife beater. And in page 14, he fought against corruption. The final words then mythologizes him as a physical marvel, a mental wonder. Superman is destined to reshape the destiny of our world. Superman is rooted in the premise that he represents change, whereas quality as a powerful outsider would improve and protect the unprotected in society. Thus, arguably, his most effective asset isn't his powers, but his symbolic power in terms of expanding the boundaries of who can be included. So this is a remake of my old Superman Man of Tomorrow video. I wasn't really happy with the old one because it was pretty inefficiently written and I focused so much on the fear aspect of the story that I never really mentioned heritage, aliens, or even go into Lois too deeply. So this puts them back into the discussion and I thought it would be pretty cool to round it out a little bit more. Anyways, the original video is in the description below and special thanks to everyone on Patreon. I've been working on like 5 essays for this whole time, so there's more coming.
Good, but the ground is shrinking beneath her feet.